There's a poison that can infect a nation, and it doesn't come through the water or the air, it comes through words. It doesn't kill the body, it captures the mind. And once it takes hold, it can lead millions of people to do the unthinkable, all while believing that they're absolutely on the right side of history.
So, how does that happen? It's one of history's most terrifying questions. You might think it takes overwhelming force or some kind of, supernatural charisma. But the reality is a lot more methodical. It's more calculated. And in many ways, it's a lot more disturbing.
Because it doesn't begin with soldiers in the streets. It begins with a story. A very carefully engineered story. See, if you want to control a population, you don't start by putting them in chains. You start by changing the story they tell themselves. And today, we're going to analyze just how that story gets built.
All right, so first things first, any message, no matter how powerful it might be, needs fertile ground to grow. Before you have the messenger, you have to have an audience that's ready, and in this case, desperate to listen. Let's just paint a quick picture of post-World War I Germany. You have to understand the nation was on its knees. The Treaty of Versailles wasn't just a document. It was a source of deep national humiliation. The economy was an absolute wreck, with crippling reparations and unemployment that was just through the roof. People had lost all faith in their government. So this created this huge vacuum of hope. And right into that void stepped a movement that didn't just offer new policies, it offered salvation, a promise to restore Germany to its former glory. Okay, so the stage is set. We have a nation desperate for a news story. Now we need to talk about the lead actor. It's a common myth that Hitler had some kind of natural, almost mystical charisma. But the historical record tells a very different story. His power wasn't some innate gift. It was the result of practice and more practice. He wasn't a natural, he was a calculated, rehearsed performer. Let's break down his technique. First, the words. He kept the message incredibly simple, using short, highly emotional sentences. We're talking often under 6 words. His voice was a tool that he mastered, starting out calm, almost informative, and then building to this crescendo of manufactured rage. And his body language, all those dramatic theatrical gestures, they were anything but spontaneous. And we actually know just how calculated this all was. His personal photographer, Heinrich Hoffmann, later said that Hitler would have him take pictures while he rehearsed his speeches. Why? So he could study the photos afterwards and refine each pose, each gesture for maximum effect. I mean, think about that. This wasn't charisma, it was a craft. The power was entirely manufactured. So you've perfected the performer. Now you need a machine to broadcast that performance to the entire country. This is where the propaganda machine comes in. At its head was Joseph Goebbels, and he wasn't just spreading ideas. He was using a specific toolkit of psychological weapons designed to completely reshape reality itself. The first tool in that kit, and arguably the most crucial one, is to pinpoint an enemy. It is so much easier to unite a population when you give them a common them to rally against. By branding the Jewish people and communists as an existential threat, the Nazis created a powerful us versus them story that funneled all the nation's fear and frustration onto one single target. But it's not enough to just name an enemy. The next step is to make them seem less than human. This is dehumanization, and it's key. By constantly using terms like parasites, vermin, or a plague to describe Jewish people, the propaganda machine slowly stripped them of their humanity in the public mind. This wasn't just name-calling. It was a psychological tactic to make violence against them feel not just acceptable, but necessary. So how do you make these enormous lies stick? The principle was brutally simple: repetition. Goebbels was a master of this idea, that if you repeat a lie often enough and loudly enough, it eventually starts to sound like the truth. The same simple slogans, the same enemies, the same promises, just hammered into people's minds through every radio, every newspaper, every poster, until it became an unquestioned reality. Language itself was also turned into a weapon. The Nazis created this chilling new vocabulary specifically to mask what they were doing. Mass arrests of their political opponents, that was called protective custody. The military invasion of Poland, that was just police activity. And of course, the most infamous examples, special treatment, was a euphemism for execution, and the genocide of millions was hidden behind the bureaucratic phrase, the final solution. It's a way of making the unthinkable sound mundane. You know, all these individual tools really fit into a larger four-part psychological framework. First, you construct a threat. They are here to destroy us. Second, you attribute guilt. All of our past problems are their fault. Third, you destroy any alternatives. Only we have the answer. And finally, you promise a glorious future. Once they are gone, a perfect world awaits us. It's a complete system for justifying literally any action. But how do these techniques actually work on millions of people all at once? Well, this brings us to our final piece of the puzzle, the psychology that can transform a population of individuals into one compliant mass. The Nazi leadership were actually big students of crowd psychology, especially the work of Gustave Le Bon. His theory was that when people gather in a large crowd, something strange happens. Their individual personality and their sense of responsibility, it kind of vanishes. It gets replaced by a collective mind that is highly emotional, not very rational, and incredibly open to suggestion from a strong leader. Individual thought gets swallowed by group feeling.
And this is exactly why the mass rallies at Nuremberg were so critical. These weren't just speeches. They were carefully choreographed spectacles of power. Imagine being there. The endless columns of marching soldiers, the seas of flags, the unified chants. All of it was designed to make the individual feel small and to make the movement feel massive, powerful, and absolutely inevitable. It's a powerful form of social proof, basically telling everyone there, look around. Everyone believes this. You should too.
And this isn't just theory. Modern analysis of autocratic regimes shows that this kind of sustained propaganda has a real measurable effect. It's been observed to reduce public protest behaviors by as much as 11.5%. It just goes to show you that fear and conformity are incredibly powerful forces when it comes to suppressing dissent.
Which brings us to a final and, frankly, a chilling question. We look back at all this as history, right? As something that happened to other people in another time. But is the human mind, is our psychology really any different today?
The platforms change, for sure. We've gone from the radio to television to social media algorithms. But the underlying principles, creating an enemy, simplifying the message, repeating the lie, and manipulating group emotion, those are timeless. The story of what happened in Germany isn't just history. It's a manual. And understanding that manual is the best defense we have against it ever being used again.
If you enjoy this type of content, don't forget to subscribe.